Good morning. My name is Annette Allen. I'm a business development specialist with the value added branch of Manitoba Agriculture. Welcome to the final webinar in the Getting into Retail webinar series hosted by Manitoba Agriculture. New front of package labeling requirements in Canada, what you need to know. We would like to start the webinar by recognizing that Manitoba is on the treaty territories and ancestral lands of the Anishinaabe, Anishinaabe, Dakota Oyate, the Nessalan, and the Hethiowak peoples. We acknowledge Manitoba is located on the homeland of the Red River Métis. We acknowledge northern Manitoba includes lands that were and are the ancestral lands of the Inuit. We respect the spirit and intent of treaties and treaty making and remain committed to working in partnership with First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people in the spirit of truth, reconciliation, and collaboration. It is my pleasure today to introduce today's presenter, Denise Amanot-Gilchrist, the Food Safety and Quality Specialist at Food and Beverage Manitoba. Denise brings over 20 years of experience supporting food industry members, from startups to established companies, with product development, labeling compliance, food safety plans, SOPs, and resolving quality and safety challenges. Previously, she served as a technician and lab instructor in the Department of Food and Human Nutritional Sciences at the University of Manitoba, where she trained students in GMPs, microbiology, food processing, and wastewater management. Denise holds both a bachelor's and master's in food science from the University of Manitoba, specializing in dairy science. This webinar again is being recorded, and Denise will address your questions at the end of her presentation. So enter your questions into the chat function and we will respond to them later. Denise, the floor is yours.
All right, thank you very much, Annette, for the introduction. Yep, and today, as Annette said, we're going to tackle the new front of packaging labeling requirements in Canada and hopefully cover everything you need to know here. All right, so having said that, let's get started. Also, I want to disclaim that, I do acknowledge that this is the policy, a lot of policy, so it can be dry at some times. So I'll try my best to keep you guys entertained and make it as exciting as possible for you. All right. Okay, so let's start with an overview on what we already know, what we have on our packaging right now. So as of right now, we have you're required to have the nutritional facts table. So you're going to have your serving size, calorie, nutrient, and percent daily values. You're required to have your list of ingredients, such as your allergens, any gluten sources, anything that's present as ingredient you should declare. Also, if you have a nutritional claim, that must be on your package, and you should be able to prove that you can make these claims. So something like low sodium or high fiber. And now, as starting January 1st, 2026, foods that are high in one or more of either saturated fats, sugar, sodiums will require the front of package nutritional symbol. From now on, we can just call it the symbol. That's what they refer it to. So going forward, we can call it that too. All right, so a little bit of background information on this. It always helps to understand why this came about and such. So on July 20th, 2022, Health Canada published amendments to the Food and Drug Regulation to add the new requirement of the symbol for most prepackaged foods containing nutrients of public health concern. Now, the rationale to add this to the packaging is it will help Canadian consumers to more easily identify foods high in saturated fat, sugar, and or sodium. And hopefully, the goal is to reduce the excess consumption of these nutrients to help reduce associated health risks. Now, there's many rules associated with these, and this is what my presentation will be focused on today. It consists of four parts, the rules. So first, packaging that is prohibited from carrying the symbol. So there's some packaging that can't have the symbol. The nutrient threshold for the symbols, so we'll go over that. And some exemptions from carrying the symbol. These can be both full exemptions or conditional exemptions. And then we'll go over a presentation of the symbol, how it should be presented on your packaging, right? Moving along. So foods that are prohibited from displaying the symbol. These would be products for infants 6 months of age or older, but less than 1 year old. Any human milk fortifiers and infant formula should not carry the symbol. Formulated liquid diets as defined by the FDR, meal replacements, nutritional supplements should not carry the symbol. Food represented for protein restricted diets, foods represented for low specific amino acid diets, and foods represented for use in a very low energy diets as defined by the FDR as well. Should not carry the symbol, right? So moving on to threshold for the symbol. So FDR requires that a nutrition symbol appear on the label when the amount of saturated fat, sugar, and or salt is equal to or higher than the specific nutrient threshold. And we'll be going over the thresholds. I have a table so I can show you this more specifically. Regulations, the regulations specify the thresholds and the approach for determining whether the amount of one or more of the nutrient meets or exceeds them, right? So with the thresholds, there's some nutrients like fiber, potassium, calcium. The DV is the recommended amount people should try to consume in a day, whereas opposed to nutrients like saturated fats, sugars, and salts, the DV is the amount people should try not to exceed in a day. So that's how they differ there. So DVs, the daily values, are displayed in a table of daily values in the FDR, and I have the table here that follows, so we can go over it. So just to help orientate, so this is part one of the daily values for macronutrients and sodium. And the macronutrients are what we're most concerned with when it comes to the symbol. That's what we're looking at. So in column one here, as you see, there's the nutrients. So you have your fat, your sum of saturated fatty acids and trans fatty acids. They don't differentiate between the two. They combine them. Then you have the fiber, sugar, cholesterol, and sodium. Now, when you look at the other two columns, they are the daily values. So in column one, these are the daily values that are intended for children between the ages of 1 and 4. So it's for food solely made for children. And then column three, that will be your default column. So it's for everybody else, the general population. So if some foods are made solely for children, you see them in there's an aisle where the baby aisle is, and then there's the rest of the population that can be for anyone, right? So that's what these two columns represent. So just for example here, like for sugar, if you see 100 grams is the daily value for sugar. And I'm going to use this as an example further on. So that's why I highlighted it. So what percent DV triggers the front of package symbol? Now, saturated fats, sugars, and or sodium equal or greater than 15% of the applicable DV set out in columns 2 and 3 of part 1 of the table is what triggers it. So here's an example. I like to show examples because it helps to visualize things here. So a DV for sugar, as I said, would be 100 grams. And so that means that a product with 15 grams or more per serving would need the symbol. Now, this is assuming the portion size is 100 grams. Now, if your portion size was, say, 30 grams, then you'd be looking at, I believe it's 4.5 grams would set off the symbol, would trigger the symbol. All right. And as I said, in column 2, those were foods solely for children. And so you would use those daily values. And then in column 3, that was the default requirement. All right. So there's always some exceptions, of course, to the rules, right? So as I said, the prepackaged food with a reference amount of greater than 30 grams or 30 mLs that are not main dishes, you would use greater than 15, equal or greater than 15% DV as your default. But for prepackaged foods with a reference amount that is much smaller, then you would use a DV of greater or equal to 10%. And that's for for saturated fat, for sugar, and for sodium, for all the components. Now, prepackaged main dishes, if you're buying a meal that's got a larger portion size, with a reference amount of greater than 200 grams for the population, or the regular population, or for 170 grams for that is just for the children's meal, you would use the value of greater or equal to 30% the DV as your trigger for the symbol. All right, so those are the two exceptions there. It's the based on the serving size, the reference amount. All right. So now moving on to exemptions. There's exceptions, but there's also exemptions, right? So an exemption, let's define it. An exemption means that a symbol is not required even if the product's saturated fat, sugar, and or sodium content meets or exceeds the applicable threshold. So there's two types of exemption that we have to look at. So there's some foods that have full exemptions, and then there's other foods that have conditional exemptions, and we'll go over both of those, right? So food exemptions that don't need to carry the symbol are, with a full exemption, that is. For example, the first one is shipping containers. If the container and its content are not sold as a single unit to a customer at retail, it doesn't need the symbol. And some examples of this would be like a 4 kilogram box of chicken strips to be served in a cafeteria. Or another example could be a large bag of nuts to be repackaged from bulk by the retailer into smaller amounts. So that large bag wouldn't require the symbol either. Then there's the second full exemption would be products that are with a small display surface, less than 15 centimeter cube. So for example, that would be like your confectionery, hard candy, small, like stick of gum or bubble gum sold individually. Like none of those would need any symbol either. All right. Then another one would be individual portions of food that are intended solely to be served by a restaurant or other commercial enterprises with meals or snacks. So that would be something like your crackers for soups. So you know how you go to a restaurant, you have these little packs of crackers. Those wouldn't need the symbol. Or creamers that you get with your coffee. They would be exempt as well. Ready to serve multiple serving products intended only to be served in commercial or industrial enterprises or institutions. Those don't need symbols. So frozen pre-cooked lasagnas, fresh pasta, pasta sauce, fruit pies, bagels, breakfast cereals, jam, processed meats, and condiments and salad dressings. These are all examples of that too, right? They would have full exemption. All right. Products intended only to be used as an ingredient in other prepackaged products intended to be sold to customers at retail, or as ingredients in the preparation of foods by a commercial or industrial enterprise or institute. So that would be like your unbaked lasagna noodles, raw seasoned fish fillets, dried pasta, noodles, frozen fries, dried soup mixes. So it's all being prepared. It's an ingredient for another meal, or it's prepared by an institution. This one is interesting. So whole, partly skimmed or skimmed cow's goat milk sold in refillable glass containers, flavored whole, partly skimmed milk, skimmed cow milk sold in refillable containers, as well as cream sold in refillable glass containers. So that was a mouthful. So there are, I was thinking about that. There's not a whole lot of places that do this, but there are some. So definitely has to be included in there. I can think of one one producer that sells here in Manitoba in glass containers, so he'll be happy to hear that. All right, other full exemptions are sweetening agents. So if you're buying sugar, it's going to be high in sugar. Agave syrup, corn syrup, maple syrup, table syrup, honey, and molasses. This is an interesting one. This one I've actually, I had coffee syrup, which is kind of a gray area because I was told that a coffee syrup with a flavoring added to it is not exempt. So there's some things that still have to, there's a bit of a gray area there. Whereas a honey that is, I learned that a honey flavored, because you get some honey flavored products as well, those are completely exempt. So honey is always exempt, but a coffee syrup with a flavoring is not exempt. It would have to be a simple syrup. All right. So there's some things there that we still have to work out. Salts. So seasoning salts that include salt in its common name, such as table salt, garlic salt, onion salt, could be celery salt. Those are all exempt because, of course, they're going to be high in sodium, right? It's an ingredient, it's a seasoning. But seasonings that don't have the salt name in it, they may have to have the symbol. So we'll have to look. I always suggest to look at the individual product because there are some differences between individual products. All right, fats and oils referred to in Division 9 of the FDR, they have it clearly defined there, and other marine oil fats or oils, so butter, ghee, or ghee, margarine, and other similar substitutes for butter and sold as such, they are exempt. For example, like a brick of butter, margarine, canola oil, and coconut oil, those are exempt. And there are some interacting between full exemptions and those that have conditional exemptions. And I'll give you some examples of those later on as we go. So foods with conditional exemptions. Now, these conditional exemptions are associated either with the NFT. So if you have a conditional exemption from having an NFT, like such as fruit and whatnot, then you would be conditionally exempt from having the symbol as well. And nutrient-specific condition exemptions associated with ingredients. So those, that a fruit would be one of those as well. Good example. All right. Okay, so we'll go through that. So pre-packaged products are conditionally exempt from the symbol requirement when they also are conditionally exempt from carrying an NFT, as I said. So you have your alcoholic beverages that are greater than the 0.5%. Those never require NFTs, and so they will never, they're exempt from carrying the symbol as well, even though they may be high in sugar or fat. Raw single ingredients meats, byproducts, including poultry, they don't carry nutritional facts table. Ground single ingredient meat are always required to carry an NFT. However, they are conditionally exempt from carrying the symbol. So ground meat, you'll have the NFT, but no symbol required. Raw single ingredient fish or seafood products are exempt. Products sold only in retail establishment where they are prepared, processed from their own ingredients are exempt as well. So those that make in the deli, they would be exempt, right? Other conditional exemptions, products sold only at roadside stands. So they do not need the symbol. Craft shows, flea markets, fairs, farmers markets, anything that's prepared by the individual who sells it, prepared and sold at these fairs, those are all exempt. And they don't necessarily need the NFT, but most people will put the NFT because a lot of times they move in, they're also selling in retail products. So if you're selling in retail, then you may have to have it. Individual serving of products sold for immediate consumption and that has not been subject to any process to extend the shelf life, including special packaging, those are exempt as well. Products sold only in retail establishments where they are packaged if they are labeled with a sticker and have an available display surface of less than 200 centimeter cube. And products that have an available display surface of less than 100 centimeter cube. So a good thing to keep in mind is that products lose their exemption from the symbol requirement if they lose their exemption from an NFT requirement. So as soon as you start blending maybe other ingredients into your meat, you may need an NFT, and then that may trigger also a symbol. So you have to look at the product individually. Right? All right. Now to the nutrient-specific conditional exemptions associated with ingredients. So foods with health protective benefits. This is where they get their conditional exemption from. So whole fruits, or sorry, whole or fresh, frozen, canned, dried fruits or vegetables, they are eligible, they are exempt. So they're products that are eligible for exemption, such as the example would be chopped, diced, grated, riced, or shredded forms of fruits and vegetable. Now, those that are not exempt would be, and may not be a surprise, are juices, because often they have added sugar as well, purees, paste, powdered form of fruits, vegetables, and all forms of coconut. Which this one I went back to because if you remember, the coconut oil is exempt, but the actual, I guess, fruit, coconut would be a fruit, is not. So that's interesting to me. I may need to get myself some clarification on that as well. Milk from any animal in liquid or powder form is exempt. So you do not need to have a symbol on cow's milk, sheep, or goat milk. However, this could be, interest to some people. Plant-based beverages, you need the symbol. And I think it's largely because of the calcium that is naturally found in the cow's milk, and the value, like the nutritional value of it. Plant beverages often have added sugar to them, so maybe that can be the reasoning behind that. Whole eggs, fresh or in liquid, frozen, or dried form, or whole egg mixes. Those are products that are eligible for exemption. So examples would be hard-boiled eggs, quail, turkey, duck eggs, dried whole egg mix. Not eligible would be the liquid egg white, and again, probably due to additives, plant-based eggs, and dried yolk mix. All right. Now, nuts, seeds, and their butters that contain less than 30% of their total fat content as saturated fats. So this would be like almond, cashew, sunflower seed butters. Those would be exempt. Not eligible would be hazelnut spread and coconut spreads, I guess. For vegetable or marine oils that contain less than 30% of their total fat content as saturated fat, you would have olive oil, canola oil, and sunflower oil that would be exempt. Not eligible would be animal fat oil, coconut oil, and palm oil. Having said that, this is where we get some interaction or contradiction, really, because these are actually some of those products actually get a full exemption. So the full exemption would actually, so provisions for full exemption take precedence over the conditional exemption. So I have that on this last line here in this slide. So you would go with the regulation for the full exemption. That one is tops the convention, the conditional one. All right. So more on conditional exemptions. So marine or freshwater animal products referred to in Division 21 of the FDR that contains less than 30% of the total fat content as saturated fat. So these would be products like salmon, trout, sardine, and shellfish. They're exempt. And there's none that's not eligible actually in this division. And any combination of products above could be eligible for exemption. So I have some examples of that. So you'd have sardine packed in olive oil, that would be exempt. So you have both there. You have the olive oil and the sardine, and trail mix of unsalted roasted nuts. So if you have a mixture of nuts, that could be exempt, and unsweetened dried fruit mix or cut fruits, that would be exempt as well. So mixtures of the different ones. So foods that are important sources of calcium, as I mentioned before, those are exempt, but there's conditions. So prepackaged dairy products in this list are conditionally exempt from the symbol requirements for saturated fats and sugar. So that would be cheese, yogurt, kefir, buttermilk. All right, some examples. But to benefit from the exemption, you have to have the correct amount of, or you have to have a greater than or equal to 10% of your DV in calcium per serving or reference amount, whichever one is greater, for products with reference amount of 30 grams or 30 mLs, 30 mLs for or greater or equal to 15% DV calcium serving size for reference amounts, which is, sorry, 15% of the DV in calcium per serving size or reference amount, whichever one is greater for products with larger reference amounts. All right. Okay, so that's the condition. You have to make sure you have the calcium content to be able to be exempt. All right, now this brings us to presentation. There's a lot of information on presentation, so I narrowed it down and we'll go over it, and you have some questions you can ask. There's different presentation depending on your packaging size and whatnot. But the Food and Drug Regulation, the FDR, prescribes where and how the symbols must be displayed on the label of the prepackaged product. So I have here 4 symbols. So this is what it looks like, and it's the color, it's black and white. You can't deviate from that. And you have to have the bars for the different components, and it's always in the same order. So you should always have saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. That can't deviate, and you got to have that magnifying glass as well. So it's got to look like this. So figure 1 is a good example of a product that would be high in all of them. So it would be high in fat, saturated fat, sugar, and sodium. And it also, this is a horizontal symbol, and it's also bilingual. Now, figure 2 is an example of a symbol that is unilingual, just English. And this might be for a box where sometimes you see a panel where you have the French side and one with the English side. So you might have it displayed that way. So you would have one in French and one in English. And then figure 3 is for smaller packaging size where you might not have, I think it's less than 30 centimeter cube, where you may not have the place to have all the bars on there. So in that case, it's acceptable to just put the 1 bar that it's high in, or if you had 2, then you'd have to put 2. So that would be acceptable. Otherwise, if the packaging is large enough, you would display it where you actually show the empty bar just to keep the order, right? So number 4, this would be for a package that's, again, it's unilingual, but it would be a vertical symbol, and it's high in only sodium, but it has enough space for the other 2 bars. So there's very prescribed on how they want it displayed. All right. Now, I'm just going to move this over here. So where on the label does the symbol have to be displayed? So it has to be displayed on the principal display panel. All right, so you should be able to see it. So when the height of the principal display panel is equal to or greater than the width of the principal display panel, the symbol must be displayed on the upper half of the display panel shown. So here I have 2 examples where here it's pretty much the same width or more squarish. So you would have it in the upper left corner, but I think you could also have it in the upper right corner as it is in this image. That's where it would be displayed. And they're very specific on where it has to be. It has to be very visible for the customer or client to be able to see it. Right? This is another example where on the label, when the height of the display panel is less than the width of the display panel, then it must be displayed within the right half again. So they stayed exactly on the right side. So, and then they also prescribe where like the margins, the borders that you need to leave around it, and the margins around it, how much you have to space you need to leave around it. So it's pretty easy to find this information. It's all on the Health Canada website and on CFIA website. All right. So I'm just giving you here some examples of different shapes because there's all different shapes of packaging. So it will really depend on what your packaging looks like. And that's why I didn't put all of them because then we'd be here for probably a couple of hours maybe. So to keep it simple, I'm showing a few demonstrations here. So for a cylinder package, again, it would be on the upper portion here. And this is how it would be displayed, right? And then for bottles, where product, the nutritional symbol is slightly exceeds the designated area, you would have it placed, again, it's kind of in the upper right-hand corner there. All right, hopefully this is clear, right? Okay, and so there are requirements related to the symbols. You have to make sure it's clear visible. There's visibility. The language, so it has to be both in French and English. The orientation now will depend on the packaging, whether you have a vertical or if you have it horizontal. So that specifies they specify that in the regulation. The size as well. They have prescription for size. Graphic specifications, as you see, it has to be black and white with the bars and the magnifying glass. The nutritional symbol can be printed directly on the label, or it can be applied as a sticker. But you have to make sure the sticker is not going to won't get removed easily. You have to make sure it sticks on there and doesn't come off. It's presented both it has to be presented both in official languages, both French and English as well. All right. Okay. And like I said, there's a lot of information about this. There's a whole guide on it, and that can be found on the Health Canada website and also at the Canadian Food Inspection Agency site. So the Health Canada is the one that put the regulations into place, and the role of the Canadian Food Inspection Agency will be to monitor or to inspect that these labels or symbols are being put onto the products. All right. And this will all be in effect starting January. What did I say the date was? Was it January 1st, 2026? All right. Are there any questions now? Also on this slide, I have my contact information for you. So if you have any questions, you can reach out to me anytime. All right. Now, yeah, we have lots of time for questions, so we can start with that.
Yes,
Thank you.
we do have some questions, Denise.
Great.
The first question is, what if juice is 100% fruit and no added sugar? Is it exempt then?
I I want to say that it will not be exempt. Based on what I read, I don't think it will be exempt. It has to be whole fruit. But that is a good question. So I would definitely look into it, but based on what I read, it's not exempt.
Okay, thank you. The next question is, can you confirm if food, beverage like bone broth would be eligible for the labeling if over the threshold?
What kind of broth?
Bone broth.
Bone broth. Ah, see, this is one I haven't encountered yet. Bone broth. It's probably gonna be, well, it's got most likely salt added to the bone broth. It might be exempt for saturated fat, but maybe not for salt.
Okay.
Yeah, that's one that could be, that's where the questions come when the ones that are a bit gray, they're not like they're not in the FDR. but I would suspect that it might be for salt. Unless there's no salt in it, then it might be exempt. Not entirely sure on that one, to be honest.
Okay, the next question is about homemade salsas, mango and tomato salsas. Both
Mhm.
are canned products that have fruit and or vegetables. Would these be considered conditionally exempt?
It depends on their formulation. If they have added sugar, added salt, then they would not be exempt.
Okay. Are you familiar with dog treats? Do these apply in the same fashion to the packaging that you covered in the food and beverage requirements?
Ah, I believe the symbol is just for human foods at this time, but that is another good question. I haven't seen anything on the regs about the dog treats or any dog food. So I think this just applies for human food.
Good question, though.
Very good question. You know, I've never done a label for dog food, but I would like to.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
their regulations are very different.
very strict. Yeah, they have very strict regulations for the dog food, but as far as I know, this is just for human, like just for human consumption.
Okay, next question. I sent in our draft packaging design for review by Health Canada and was told they are not able to review the symbol placement on the packaging. Who shall I contact before I go to print?
Yeah, I know. They don't do any reviews and probably because then they would be doing that's all they'd be doing, right? So I could help with that or any of the like consultants that do any food packaging. Also the people that do the printing a lot of times they're very knowledgeable at this too. I know this is newer, but they're very knowledgeable about where the nutritional facts table has to be placed and all that sort of thing. But you can reach out to me if you'd like, or any of the consultants that would be doing this type of work.
Thank you. That's a great offer, Denise. And that actually was a great lead into something that I wanted to share with the group. Um, for Manitoba companies that will
Mhm.
be affected by the new front of packaging label requirements and need to have either new labels and or packaging developed or reviewed, Manitoba's Sustainable Cap Market Development Program offers 50-50 grant funding for design and setup costs. There's no support for the actual production of the labels and packaging, but the development and review would be covered under our market development program. And that program is currently open for intakes. So be sure to check that out if that applies to you.
Oh, that's great to know. Great, thank you. Any more questions?
Oh, yes, we have
Okay.
quite a few more questions, which is great.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
We are a dry soup mix company. Are we
Mhm.
exempt?
Um, with the salt content, you're probably no, I'd have to look at like again, you almost have to look at the products individually, but if it depends on the salt content, no, we'd have to look at it. I don't think it would be exempt, no.
Okay, next
I guess
question.
I guess I
Oh,
should
sorry.
say unless it's for institutional use, because there's those exemptions too. Depends if it's for retail, it would not be exempt. But if it's for institutional use or for restaurant use or that, then it or being prepared at a deli or something, then you might get some exemption there. So it depends how it's being used too.
Do the new symbols have to be in the shape they are provided, or can they be changed at all to conform to the label? Example, curved, different shapes, etc.
No, they have to be presented as prescribed, and that you just have to modify the sizes. There's different sizes that you can add to your label, but they also have a section on irregular packaging. So that maybe I will add that to my presentation for October when I give my follow-up presentation. But it has to look as they have it. They're very specific on the format.
If our current stock of packaging isn't used prior to 2026 rules implementation, can we use up existing packaging into 2026 and then switch to the 2026 compliant packaging?
Now, I can't speak for CFIA, but in the past, they have allowed you know, companies to do that as long as they're, they use their stock and then they show that they're ordering new packaging. I think it will depend on your inspector, uh, but usually they give you some leeway there. Typically, I've seen that in the past. So I think they will be a little bit soft on that, but you have to prove that you've ordered the new packaging. It will depend on the inspector, though.
Are dry gourmet pasta meals and noodles exempt?
Dry pasta meals and noodles. Sound. Um, I don't know. I don't think they will be exempt, but they might meet like they might not need like some foods won't even need the symbol if you're under that 15% and for portion size. I guess it depends on a pasta meal what, the ingredients again. I think they won't be exempt though.
Okay, next question. If my product is such that I need to make a front of package declaration, oh, we already answered this one. This is about using old packaging.
Yeah.
Yeah, can I keep using I didn't realize it until I started
I
to read
will,
it.
I'll contact CFIA to get a clarification on that, but from past experience, they're not gonna, if you still have a month worth of packaging, they'll let you use it. And they're not gonna make you recall it for that. But, again, it will be the discretion of the inspector possibly.
Right. The questions in the chat have gone kind of silent.
Okay.
We do have some more time. Oh, no, another one popped up. You're not off the hook yet, Denise. For the new label, are we required to shrink our own design logos to allow for the full-size label, or can we use the label with minimal bars? I need just the sugar declaration.
Okay, that's a good question. So it will depend. If your display panel is greater than, I think it was 30 centimeter cube, then you have to have all the bars on there. If it's smaller and it can just accommodate for the one bar that you're high in sugar, then that's all you would put. But if you have enough space on the packaging, the front display, you have to have all the bars, even though it's only elevated in the sugar. Yeah. And then of course you would use the orientation that best suits your packaging too. So they have, um, that's prescribed in their regs too.
Do you know if there is anyone providing a workshop style session to help guide producers through the process?
Not at this time, but maybe that's something I could look into if there's enough people that are interested in it.
Sounds like a potential
Yeah,
opportunity.
let me write that down. If there's enough people that would be interested in that, there's always a possibility. And we can maybe invite someone that from CFI A2 that might be interested in providing some guidance. You never know. Mhm. I'll keep it in mind. Thank you.
The next question is related to SCAP funding.
Mm,
Uh, in Manitoba, which SCAP funding is available for labels? I am wondering if Alberta has an equivalent. This question must have come from Alberta.
mm. Would
And
that be something?
if
Yeah.
you're unsure, Denise, I can go ahead and answer that.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a question for you, Annette.
It appears so. Um, the Manitoba SCAP program will cover the design and setup, like the development of your labels, but not the printing of the actual labels. Um, and if anyone on the webinar would like to check out all the details on our market development program, it's all available online at manitoba.ca/SCAP. And of course, you can always reach out to the value added branch at mbagrifood@gov.mb.ca. And we would be happy to help you through the process and answer any questions that you might have. I don't see any more questions, Denise.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, a lot of this would be specific to the product. So sometimes it's hard to answer all the questions until you see the ingredient list and then you start doing the crunching the numbers. Then you can have a better idea as well. Yeah. All right.
For sure, there are a lot of different scenarios
There are,
when it
yeah.
comes to labeling.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much, Denise, for a great presentation. We really appreciate you spending your time with us. And also a special thank you to Food and Beverage Manitoba for your partnership on this webinar. And thank you all for your engagement and great questions. It's been a really great session. If you do think of questions at a later date, Denise has kindly provided her email address. So feel free to reach out to her, or as I stated earlier, you can reach out to our branch, the value added branch, at any time at mbagrifood@gov.mb.ca. If you wish to revisit any of the information presented during our webinar series, uh, all 6 sessions, the entire Getting into Retail webinar series has been recorded and is available on our Food Business Pathways playlist on the Manitoba Agriculture YouTube channel. You will also find some newly released videos about our branch, the Value Added Branch, so I would encourage you to check it out. Thank you and have a great day.
Thank you.